Hi, and thanks for watching In Plain English, where we talk about complicated concepts in as simple terms as possible. This week we're going to be talking about photosynthesis, and actually more specifically just the first stage of photosynthesis, and then the next video we'll talk about the Calvin cycle, but we're going to break it up into two videos because there's a lot to talk about. You'll also see I've differed from my standard format, and I've pre-drawn part of this because it's just too much to draw, and I don't want you watching a 20-minute video while I try to draw this all out. I can talk you through it much faster. So the cool part about this process, honestly, is that mostly when we think about it, we think of plants, green plants. Other things can do it, algae, some bacteria, but mostly we'll talk about plants. But honestly, they can take sunlight and water and CO2 and convert it into food, which is a really pretty spectacular process when you think about it. It would be like if you were sitting at the beach and you were hungry and you just thought, I'm going to make a burger, and so you sit there and take a drink and all of a sudden create a burger out of that. It's like an impossible phenomenon that they can create food out of just some gas and sunlight, but we're going to talk about how that happens, and it's really pretty amazing to appreciate that. So the easiest way, in my mind, to think about photosynthesis is to think about it like the PLINKO game on Price is Right. Now, it sounds silly, but bear with me. You're going to listen to this analogy, and this is what you'll remember as you go through the stages of photosynthesis. So the first thing that happens if you think of Price is Right, so here you are, part of a water molecule, sitting there in the crowd with your friends. Let me just talk about first, the crowd being in the thylakoid space. So the thylakoid is, if we break down a plant cell, which is going to be kind of squarish, it's filled with these chloroplasts, which are what give plants its green color. And inside the chloroplast are a bunch of little stacked containers, which is where this process takes place. So inside each of these containers, I'm going to blow this picture up, and they're just stacked on each other like that. And then if you blow up one of these, what it is called a phospholipid bilayer, which is just a complicated word for saying a barrier. Okay, and that would be this section, one little section of the wall. Okay, so it's a two-layer wall that is within each of these thylakoids. Okay, so this is the wall that we're looking at here. You can see the phospholipid bilayer right down here. I'll redraw it, and we're just looking at the wall up close of one of those thylakoids. Outside of the wall, but still within the chloroplast here, all this space here is called the stoma, and that's where other additional reactions take place that we'll talk about in the next video. Okay, so you, as an audience member, would be inside the thylakoid space. Water has been brought up from the roots of the tree, and that's you as the water molecule being brought into the studio. Okay. Now what they do is there is a photon of sunlight that comes in right here, and so as they're trying to pick the audience member, they kind of bounce around to different audience members. This photon, this excitement of energy, and they finally hit this called P680. Okay, P680 is the audience member that they're going to select. It's a fancy way. Light comes in different waveforms. 680 waveform is red light. So P680 is a science way of saying red. Okay, so you are dressed in red. Okay, and you get picked to go up on stage at Price is Right. Okay, so yay, and that obviously causes a lot of excitation, and you and your electron run up the stage to start participating in the game. Okay, so now the first stage of the game, now that you're run up on stage, so you have a lot of energy, you're jumping around, the first stage of the game is to guess the prices of whatever they have on there. They usually have like whatever, mac and cheese and paper towels, and you have to guess, this one's $4.89 and this one's $2.79. Okay, so as you guess, you get it wrong, and the energy in the crowd starts to kind of go down. Okay, and you get it wrong again. So this is how you earn your little PLINKO pellets is by guessing. Paper towels, nope, you guessed the price wrong. Rice-A-Roni, nope, you guessed the price wrong. And you only have one option left, okay? And so in the crowd, as this is dropping down, the excitement's dropping down, but the suspense is building up. And so that's this ATP, is this way of storing energy. So even though the crowd's not jumping and screaming anymore, they're really tense and excited and stored up energy. They're ready to explode again into excitement. So that's this ATP, is the anticipation of the crowd that gets formed as you get lower and lower energy states, as you drop down this we call the electron transport chain. Okay, so as you get more and more guesses wrong, you're down to your last PLINKO ball. Okay, and you finally guess it right. So you finally guessed that the cleaning supply was the correct answer. So the crowd goes wild. Okay, so there's another infusion of excitement. Another photon comes in and bounces around. Okay, and finally gets, because you got your PLINKO ball, hits you, and it hits at P700, which is a different wavelength of light, 700 nanometers, which is a fancy way of saying blue. So the lights absorbed in this process are red lights and blue lights. Okay, green light is the least absorbed in the whole process, which is why plants look green. Okay, that's why chloroplasts are green, because green light is the least useful light in this process. Red and blue are the most popular light. Okay, but so you finally got your PLINKO ball. The crowd gets excited again. You get excited again. You run back up the PLINKO stairs. Okay, and now this second run up the PLINKO game is called Photosystem 1. Okay, so even though it's the second part of the process, it was discovered first, and then we call PLINKO the game PLINKO. We didn't talk about this part first. This is Photosystem 2. So Photosystem 2 was discovered second. Even though it's the first part of the chain, it's how you build up and get your PLINKO balls. The thing that we really care about is, and that was discovered first and that was named after, is Photosystem 1, PLINKO game. This is where we actually get the chance to win. Okay, so now, as your PLINKO ball starts to drop, boom, 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 back down the second stage of the electron transport chain, okay, your PLINKO ball hits, boom, and this forms NADPH, okay, that is your winning ticket, that is your brand new car, okay, so there is an NADP plus floating around, and that's the chance to win your car. When your PLINKO ball drops back down, in photosynthesis you always win, and you get this brand new car, NADPH, every time. So now you have these two products, okay? So you have your NADPH product, which I'll write the products down here. NADPH is your product. You have the ATP that's formed down here by the crowd. Okay, so the producers, the Price is Right people, have their product that they want, and then you have these byproducts, which are your other friends, the other audience members that didn't get picked. Okay, so you have oxygen, which is a useless byproduct that just gets filtered out, so they all leave the stage, and then you have some extra hydrogen ions that just kind of hang around in the thylakoid space, and they'll be used later too. But these are your important byproducts, your NADPH and your ADP. That is the precursors to energy, and they will be used later to produce energy and ultimately to produce sugar, carbohydrates, which are food. Okay, and that is, in plain English, in Price is Right terms, the simple way of understanding photosynthesis. And again, just to reiterate, photosynthesis is broken up into Photosystem 1, which was discovered first, but is actually the second stage of the process, and Photosystem 2, which is called that because it was discovered second. Just like if you met Joe, and then you met another Joe later in your life, you call him Joe 2, or Joe Jr. It's no different, it's just that you found him second, okay? And those are all part of this bigger process that takes place in the chloroplasts inside these stacked things called thylakoids, and inside the thylakoid membrane, which creates a differential between what's outside the membrane and what's inside the thylakoid space. And so you end up with these energy differentials and energy carrying products, NADPH, ATP. You end up with the most important byproduct in the world for us is oxygen, O2. This is why plants create oxygen and allow us to breathe easier, and then this H+ ion. There's photosynthesis in plain English. Next video we'll talk about the Calvin cycle, which is happening at the same time and uses these products to create energy. So that's photosynthesis in the first part of photosynthesis in a nutshell. Thanks for watching in plain English. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate all your feedback.